Hi, I'm Steve Taylor and I wanted to talk to you about my new book, Out of the Darkness. Out of the Darkness really follows on in many ways from my last book, Waking from Sleep. Because when I was writing Waking from Sleep, I collected a lot of awakening experiences from people, and I was surprised that quite a few of the experiences I collected were from people who'd been in a state of turmoil or suffering in some way psychologically, people who'd been suffering from severe depression or bereavement or alcoholism. And even though they're in such a negative state, these people have had moments when things have suddenly given way and they've broken through to this state of well-being and connection and a sense of purpose and meaning. So I did some more research into that. I decided to concentrate on those people, and I found that a lot of the people who'd had these awakening experiences, they weren't just temporary experiences, they were actually permanent experiences. People had shifted into a permanent state of well-being and connection and purpose. And in the end I interviewed about 30 people who'd been through these experiences, and I found some really amazing stories. There was a man I spoke to in America called Michael Hutchison, an author, and he'd been running one day and he slipped on some ice and fell onto a rocky riverbed and broke his spine. So after that he was paralysed and in a state of depression and frustration for a long time, until finally he decided that he had no option but to try to accept his situation. And at that moment, at the very moment when he accepted the situation, something gave way inside him and he shifted into this state of well-being, he shifted into a state of bliss, and he felt this spiritual sense of connection to the world. Somehow he felt as though he was in touch with the blissful radiance, which is the essence of reality. And another case was a colleague of mine, a college where I used to teach, who he'd been a serious alcoholic years before. And he'd reached the classic point of rock bottom, where he lost everything. He lost his family, his job, his friends, all his money and possessions. And he decided to start going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And he went through the process in AA when they tell you to hand over your problem. So he did that, he handed over his problem, and at that very moment again, something gave way inside him and he underwent this psychological shift. And ever since then, he's been in a state of well-being and liberation. He feels that he doesn't worry about anything anymore. He feels this constant sense of connection to the universe. So, I was surprised at how easy it was to find cases of this transformation. And I feel that there are probably thousands, tens of thousands of people like that around us all the time. But in a lot of cases, I found that the people didn't really understand what had happened to them because they didn't have a background in spirituality or even psychology. And it was only, in some cases it took them years to really understand what happened. And eventually, some of the people went on to be spiritual teachers. For example, Eckhart Tolle, as many people know, he underwent a shift like this at the age of 29 when he was on the point of committing suicide. But in many cases, as I say, these people didn't really understand what had happened to them. And one of the main purposes of Out of the Darkness is simply to tell the amazing stories of these people, these inspiring stories that are collected. But also, one of the main aims in the book is to try to understand what happens in these experiences. So why does psychological turmoil and suffering, why can it lead to this psychological transformation? For some people, rather than leading to a breakdown, it leads to a shift up. So in my next video, I'm going to explain why psychological turmoil can bring about this transformation.